very difficult, isn't it, when you're a CEO of a major company, and you've been told at this point that you're running it, you make the choices, you decide what the public indeed want to watch or listen to or read. And then suddenly you're given this mega budget and you think, you know what, I could get anybody that I really want. So you look down and you think, who are the hottest properties right now in the world? That was a problem, of course, for the CEO over at Spotify, the streaming giant audio place, or whatever you want to call it. Way back, all those years ago now, you could not really be forgiven for thinking that he'd made a good choice. Seemingly at that point, Meghan was at the top of her game. Everybody seemingly wanted a slice of that ex-royal action. So he signed her. Then, of course, he waited and waited and waited. And eventually they did something, 30 minutes literally, as a bit of a teaser podcast. Then he waited and waited again. And then finally, after sending in producers and arrangers and script writers, he finally got a series of podcasts. As I've said to you before, the most famous one probably would be with Mariah Carey, who claimed that Meghan herself, in fact, was a diva. Serena Williams, an alleged also good friend, came out of it reasonably well. But the rest, can you really work any of them out? Who remembers them? Now, this is the big problem, as we told you, for the streaming giant Spotify. But the bigger problem also for Meghan Markle was simply not the fact that people didn't want to listen because they were kind of tediously dull, wokish, and of course lecturing, with every podcast seemingly going back to Meghan's own strife, discord, heartache, heartbreak, whatever. Everything suddenly turned back to Meghan. And people really didn't want that. It's as simple as that. There's a definite niche for that market, and that's not what she was employed for. They wanted salacious gossip, a little bit like they fed and gave in oodles to Netflix, but that was mainly Harry. You'll notice once again there's a pattern here. When it was her solo project, she didn't really attempt to attack anybody, making herself almost like saint-like during those particular podcasts. Now, fast forward to 2023, lots of jobs on the line, more to come. People are bailing out of the streaming giant services simply because it's a cost of living crisis, cutbacks, and simply people can't afford. Guess what, though? It's not Meghan's fault. Absolutely not. Apparently, according to a very good source, she pointed out to the CEO that you can't cancel me. What about whether he wants to cancel them or not, is it? The bottom line is people don't want to listen. Then also simply this, they're not going to pay the books. Now, allegedly there was going to be a brand new series, but that's now seemingly all under negotiation if and when and ever it came back to light. But with Meghan, it's never her fault. But here's where it gets really interesting. Spotify, you see, seemingly think that it belongs to them, copyright ownership, all that sort of stuff. Why on earth? What's the plan with them? Would they restream them, re-edit them? Who knows? But then over in Meghan's camp, Arch will apparently feel they own them too. And guess what? She's certainly not going to be silent. She's already rooting around for an option to perhaps start up her own podcast directly, independently through her own production company. So while many people are saying that the voice has been silent, not really according to Meghan Markle. She's not giving up, thinks she's still got plenty to say, and more importantly, believes, maybe wrongly, allegedly, that people still want to hear from her. Whichever way you look at it, the battle with Spotify moving forward is far from over. But for those poor people that have now been laid off by the wrong mistake of the CEO, the battle is just beginning. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.